Welcome everyone to the Fuzz TV News Podcast. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Connor.
Yep, I'm here. I've not had a drink yet, so and there's no news that should make me drink.
I don't have any new shows to read your description of, so it's unlikely to happen.
I thought there might not be any new shows announced. Believe it or not.
Yeah, this is a weird episode. Obviously, it's been a good month at least since the last one.
When did the strike start?
Well, it might have been 2 months now, actually, to be honest. we're a good chunk into this writer strike already. But obviously, there's some big news this week. One thing, really. I do have some old renewals and cancellations from a couple of weeks ago that might be worth mentioning, but by and large, we're here to talk about two things: a new strike and the Emmy nominations. That's what we're here for. Because, and I did check, I went back to the start of the month, I checked every day of July to see if there was any other news really worth talking about, and unsurprisingly there's not, because with all the writers on strike, they're hardly developing a lot of new content and shows and things like that.
It's hard to commission anything when all your talent is saying, no, we will not make this.
Which will get us on to the main thing, the topic of the show, if you will, which is there's a second strike now ongoing. We knew this deadline was coming up way back before the writer strike even started. We were saying how there's these deadlines for, I think the Directors Guild's also like coming up in the relative near future.
I was under the impression that was also July.
Yeah, I don't see anyone talking about it just now though, so I don't know if they're getting away with it because AI is less a threat to directing jobs for now. But
yeah, give it time.
But yeah, so SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Guild, is on strike officially this week. Talks broke down, and right away, this was such a on the wire decision that the red carpet of the premiere of Oppenheimer in London, I think it was put forward an hour because the cutoff for when the actors could stop doing press was like at a specific time.
So they came for the first hour and then they left.
Yep. Yeah, Nolan proudly announced to the audience that the actors have all left the screening. They're not here. They're all supporting the Actors Guild, and he sounded supportive enough himself when he was talking about it. But this is the first time, I believe, since 1960 that both guilds have been on strike at the same time. This is the first actor strike since 1980. So this is kind of, this is kind of like when the moon and the sun, the eclipse kind of aligns once every several years, decades, whatever it is. That's what this is.
Yeah, it's not unprecedented, obviously, but very rare. I did just check. Directors Guild, they reached an agreement with their stuff at the very end of June, so no strike from them coming up.
Arguably it wouldn't matter at this point because they all two are on strike.
Oh yeah, who are they going to direct?
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of things to kind of dig into with this. There is a couple of weird details. There's a few productions that are still going to continue through the strike. With the strike's the guild's approval. And the reason for that is that there's a few productions in the UK that are under the UK union rules, the equity, and because of the different strike laws in the UK, UK companies would actually be able to sue actors who don't show up for set. So the Actors Guild that have got actors in some of these productions, and the two that stick out to mind are Dune: The Sisterhood and the latest Game of Thrones show season that's been filmed. They're going to continue, and that's like allowed, and they're saying no, do this because they'll get into legal bother. In fact, Equity themselves have come out in support of the SAG-AFTRA strike, but it's not them that's saying, oh, you have to work. It's the
That'll be the production companies.
Yeah,
because obviously the law is on the side of the production companies, but they will be the ones leveraging it.
That said, of course, once current productions wrap up, all these actors who are forced to still continue working on these shows, they don't have to take any more roles. It's possible that because some of these, of course, are TV shows, that they're locked into future seasons, and so some shows could still keep going. But movies, I imagine, are just done right now.
There's a weird thing where we could just get now whether they make this Game of Thrones season and then be like, well, we can't make anything else. so let's make another Game of Thrones season straight away.
Yeah.
Although they won't have it written, right? And
probably not. They need writers for that. And then I think the other thing is they can't hire any new actors, which they probably need for a new season. There's probably new characters, you know.
Usually, yeah.
So it still kind of locks them out of doing it anymore, but they can finish their current season before they have to wrap up, which is something.
It's still a very limited amount of content, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Oh, it's not much at all. You know, last time there was a writer's strike, the TV networks put on a lot of reality TV to try and fill the void. This could be a longer fight because the studios, well, so before this strike started, there was a little tidbit of the writers' ongoing thing from about a week or so ago, which was that there's like maybe 2 of the big studios are the ones that are really like refusing to back down on the AI talking points with the writers. Most of them seem ready to like, you know, whatever, we can come to a deal.
We'll drop it, yeah.
But there's a couple, and we don't know which ones those are, right? We could speculate, it's probably Disney, but we could speculate which ones that is.
We know Disney, right? We don't know, like, you know, others haven't been using it, but we know for sure Disney has been using AI in some elements, because obviously there was the whole Secret Invasion intro sequence.
And also, Bob Iger's had some comments the last few days that have made him look out of touch prick.
A word that we're not allowed to say.
Yeah, says people are being unreasonable and all sorts. And this is a man who came out of retirement and gave himself a pay rise of $20 million a year or something silly like that. Like
he earned that pay rise. He earned that pay rise by coming back and being the public face of this shite.
I think that the one thing to get across there, because there's always going to be some people who, for some reason, side with the studios, and I think the most common like line to dismiss all this that you're going to see is that this is a bunch of people who are rich fighting for more money from other rich people, and that is very incorrect. It's very disingenuous. Because yes, and I think Matt Damon had a comment on the red carpet of on the eve of everything going down, where
and was taken out of context and his quote cut short by I want to say Variety.
Yeah, well, it's very clear that a lot of these, like, because Deadline's who I use for a lot of our news, but it's very clear that all these people or all these trades, as they're referred to, are all like siding with the studios because that's where all their information comes from. So they're staying in bed with them. So a good bit of critical thinking as to how they're, because every article about all these things is, you know, it's always skewed to what the strikes are interrupting. Content can't come back because of this. It's all got like a negative tinge to it, as opposed to here's why they're fighting and why they should be fighting. And, you know, like there's definitely a
it's
bias.
The same in every strike in terms of the establishment. In this case, the media is on with the the studios and, you know, that side of things. You know, I think last time I was on here we were talking about how I had a public transport strike coming up in my city.
Yeah.
And all the news, you know, and then the government are like, well, you know, they really need to sort this out. It's delaying people getting to work. It's causing problems. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point of a strike.
Yeah, pay them.
yeah. That's the entire point of why they're doing this, to cause problems so that you have to acknowledge it.
I saw a great graph about how unions were a big thing in like the 40s and 50s, and like you can actually track the opposite trend of like the less common unions have become with how much money goes to the execs and like, the top of the companies. Like it's a direct correlation. So it's something we have to. Anyway, back to the point I was making, which is, and this is what Matt Damon basically said, is that it's just not really about him. Like people like Matt Damon are set for life. They don't really need to be in this fight that much.
Yeah.
But they only make up a very small percentage of working actors. There's so many actors who only get bit parts on TV, who are working as extras, who are, you know, there was a whole thing this week about one of the actors from Orange is the New Black, and she was showing off her residuals from like being on that entire show, and it was like a residual check for like $27. It was like pennies per episode. It was nothing.
I know. In terms of the writers side of it, it was the person who wrote the episode of She-Hulk with the episode with Daredevil in it, which is obviously the quote unquote biggest episode of that show, right? And they were like, oh, you know, here's the residuals I got, and it was like $300.
Yeah.
Which isn't much for something that was seen by as many people as it was.
No, well, this is one of the points with Orange is the New Black, is that much like, for years artists complained about Spotify residuals and what they were making versus before. It seems like the exact same thing is hitting actors and writers when it comes to residuals because of streaming services. This is something that a lot of us outside the industry would never have probably seen coming, but it's actually starting to feel like Netflix and their model has actively damaged how the industry operates, especially since the rest of the industry started chasing what they were doing and are paying people much less for residuals based on streaming content.
It amazes me that Netflix, which runs at a loss, right? It's been in debt pretty much the entire time it's existed, has become the standard of what every company should be chasing.
It's just stupid.
It's insane.
Yeah.
How did they all look at that and go, they are millions of dollars in debt? Yes, we want that.
Because this is the thing, writers and actors who are on successful TV shows in the past typically could live off of it for the rest of their lives. Like, I know there's references to it on Curb with Larry David, how he never had to do anything else. He makes millions of dollars a year because of reruns of Seinfeld. The cast of Friends, who of course were making a fortune anyway when they were making the show, have actually made more money since because of residuals. Slightly
more recently, but still, like just before the streaming boom. I know Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah,
they make shitloads off it again. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. This is not a matter of quality of the content. Determines its worth. Because again, it was the same with that She-Hulk episode. People were responding, going, "Yeah, well, the episode's shit, so you shouldn't be paid." It's like that's not how it works.
Yeah,
it's hey, it was watched by millions of people. It should be paid more.
Yeah, and it's hardly the end of it. I mean, maybe you could blame the writers for it being shit, but you can't blame the actors necessarily for the quality of the overall show generally.
No.
And even then, even if someone makes something shit, if someone was willing to commission it and air it, then they should be paid for it, even if we don't think creatively it was that good.
Yeah, even if it is shit, if millions of people watched it, and advertisers are paying to get on, on it.
Talk about rights.
Yes, they should be paid.
Yeah, talk about the rights of to be paid and make a living. Under no circumstance would it be okay to turn around and say, you know what, the thing you made wasn't that good, we're not paying you. Like, you can't operate like that. Like, and that's the thing, is that for so many actors, and writers as well, this goes for the writers too, but we're specifically talking about the actors here, and I think people think of actors as being rich, and there's a small percentage of them who are famous who are. But for the most of them, they're struggling to make a living wage. Even ones who are on shows that you recognize, where it's a face and a name that you do know. And you look at anyone's IMDb, like, list, and you see some of these actors that just do a guest spot in one episode, they go to do another guest spot in another episode. Like, they almost, like, in the past that's how they would make that sustainable, is that they would have a little bit of residuals if some of those are successful shows, and they'd get a little bit from all these different projects they've done over time, forever potentially, but certainly over a good number of years. Because an actor, like, they'll get a gig, they'll get a job, right, for maybe a guest spot in an episode or two of a show. They might not get another job for months, and if the industry, like, wants them to be available to do the thing that they're supposed to be doing professionally, then the actual pay they get has to work around the idea that they might only get a couple jobs a year, or however many. Someone can work out what the correct ratio is. A lot of
TV jobs as actors were quite coveted in terms of just being, especially on network shows, being like, hey, you're employed for 3/4 of the year. You're guaranteed paychecks, residuals if you get them, great, but you're guaranteed like a minimum amount. And it was maybe for a lot of them not the most creatively fulfilling jobs, but they were guaranteed safety nets almost.
So that's just on the subject of why, no, this is something that's important, right? Number one, actors who aren't the biggest, most successful, mega rich ones actually do need to fight to be able to, like, pay rent and eat. That's point number one. Point number two. Oh, so go on.
Just wrapped up in with that is, especially because it's the US, healthcare.
Yes, they have to pay healthcare insurance and shit like that.
Like that's tied intrinsically to their job, as opposed to,
And if they're independent contractors who are hired for a day job, they don't get, coverage like that. So one of the big talking points, of course, with the writers is AI, and studios wanting to use AI more, cut out the writers, make their jobs. Basically, a lot of this is like almost comical capitalism, where the execs and the companies would love to cut out all the human beings as much as possible and just replace it with computers. And this is an example, which is especially silly in a creative industry, because the whole point is that it's people expressing themselves through art, through, stories, whatever. And one of the big talking points, like, the AI in general is a big thing, but there was a great little tidbit that's been doing the rounds on Twitter about basically the idea that a studio could hire an actor for like a background role as an extra or whatever, and they could then use their likeness with AI and computers forever without ever paying the actor again. But they'd only get paid for like they wouldn't be paying like some big like licensing fee because we can use your face forever. No, they'd get paid
it was a single day rate.
Yeah, you'll get a day rate as an extra, and then we'll never hire you again because we've got your face.
I think it's worth pointing out, this isn't something that there was a hypothetical, we want to do this. This is things that were being done already.
Sure.
There are stories coming out from, again, it is smaller background actors who are now coming out and saying, oh yeah, they took me in the bag, they maybe post all the photos, modeling, and then give me, here's a day's pay for that. And then that was it. And then they were like, hey, you just sign away your rights, and they do it to new people in the industry who don't know any better, who are like, hey, this is just what you've got to do, this is the next step. And because there was no protection against this, they were getting away with it. And
hopefully this raises awareness, because every actor should refuse this ever. Like, even if it's not like a bit part, this idea that certain big roles even will have clauses in the contract saying, hey, we can digitally recreate your face later if we want. We can add more dialogue using AI without your consent, which is a big problem. I don't think an actor should ever feel comfortable with the idea that someone else can add more words to their mouth that they're not agreeing to. And I know it's all made up, dialogue anyway, but let's say you do a role and then somewhere along the way an exec says, oh, they have to be like a more edgy character, put a bunch of racial like language into their mouth, right? And then all of a sudden there's like footage of you spewing a lot of slurs and things like that you never agreed to. You never took that as the job. You never understood and consented, okay, I'm playing this character, it can be done with this in mind. All of a sudden this thing's been created without your consent. There's a famous little bit from Alien 3 where Michael Biehn found out that they had like a likeness of him as like a dead body or a computer screen or something like that, and someone said, yeah, they can't just do that without your consent. Anyway, he got in touch with them, and without much argument, they paid him. Why even say they paid him more for that than they did for his role in Aliens, because it was they got caught doing something they weren't supposed to, so they had to just keep him happy. It's
almost like a payoff.
Yeah. Which I'm sure he was pleased with, but
absolutely, they should be paying him for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have no problem with a clause that says something like, okay, so you're a character who is part of a family, and even after your role's done on the show, we want to keep like photographs of you like on the set. Like, I have no problem, and I don't think an actor would either, of like that been like in the contract. Hey, we want to just like these photos that are on set, we want to keep them there forever so that it's consistent and it's believable, so on and so on. That's that's obviously fine. That's like whatever. But
yeah, that borderline. I know it doesn't, but in your mind it comes under like fair use, right?
Almost, yeah. It's the sort of thing where, because that original photo was taken for the show, as long as it's always just presented as that photo and you're not like adding to it or manipulating it, it's like just showing a clip effectively.
Yeah,
of stuff
the context of it is important.
But of course, what we're talking about here is trying to, and obviously it's completely fine to have like, I just finished watching the season 3 of Ted Lasso, and obviously they've got CG crowds at points, in that, and that's all perfectly fine because it's a mass of people. There's a reason why you do that, because it's impractical to get 5,000 extras typically. Obviously movies have done it in the past, but it's a bit tough for a TV show to just do that.
They have a budget to do that. I know like Ted Lasso, at some points they went to they actually just filmed at certain football games. Yeah,
you can tell when it's like a real crowd, and you can still sort of see the green screening sort of quality to it, where
I think they had a real problem early on, especially because of they were shooting during the pandemic and football was played with no crowds.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, which definitely caused some problems for their plans, I'm sure.
Yeah. So like obviously when it's a mass of bodies, like again, fine, that can be digital because you can't really see any faces. It is just a crowd of people. But this is a problem here where if they're going to take away the roles that actors typically take when they're starting out their career, then how do they, like, other than just the idea of, like, you know, and some actors do go this route, you know, if they're lucky, which is there's an audition for a big role, they want an unknown, and you get lucky and like impress them and you get taken immediately for a major role. But a lot of actors spend years doing bit parts and background extras while they're working a second job or whatever. And like that needs to be sustainable. That still has to be there as an entry point, you know.
Yeah, and this isn't just like you know, you say, no, but big actors throughout time have been doing this way. Well, after the you know, the studio era of, you know, having your stars in a system and everything kind of being done in house. This is pretty much the way it's been done for a long time. A lot of the big stars that you can think of now, yeah, they all did tiny little bit parts on things. You know, that's just the way it was. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we were doing it. You know, we were rewatching Smallville, and you know, you got that episode early on with Amy Adams.
Yeah. For sure. And one day we'll return to that shit glory again.
Yes. Yeah. But hey, at least we don't have to watch Amy Adams in a fat suit again.
No, we've done that episode. We can move on with our lives. Yeah, you know, and this goes for both writing and acting, but like this future that the studios seem to want, where they can have AI generated stories, AI generated like acting and faces and stuff like that. And even if the AI faces and stuff get like, you know, convincing, it's still always going to be inferior because ultimately all of this stuff we're talking about is supposed to be art that's expressive, that people are putting themselves into, and removing the soul and literally just turning it into content that's been churned out by an AI factory is bad for everyone. It's bad for us. So like, you know, if you're upset that there'll be no new content for a while, you know what? There's lots of old things to watch that I'm sure you've not seen. Like, they need to fight this. They need to win this for not only their livelihood and for them to make a living, but also so our content is not shit. That's also quite important here.
Yeah. It's a very important fight. It's going to be a long and probably ugly fight, but I'm fairly confident of the outcome, especially now that the actors are striking as well. I think it's just a matter of time, as opposed to there actually being any question of the end result.
Yeah.
Especially have you seen the video from Ron Perlman yet?
No. Oh.
He was doing like a live, I don't know, TikTok, Instagram live thing, and it was do you remember that quote from the other day where there's an executive that has said that the plan is to just wait until the writers are starving and they're turning homeless and they're desperate.
I saw a lot of writers joking about how they endure a lot of shit when they can't afford anything.
Right. It's Ron Perlman going, hey, I see this quote. There's more than one way to go homeless. If we could find out who this executive is, we could find out where they live. Be careful. It's great.
I wouldn't want Ron Perlman. I know he's old now, but I still wouldn't. He's a big dude.
You wouldn't want him coming after you with a baseball bat, would you?
No. Yeah. So, you know, all the release dates that have been announced for like next year, because, you know, it's obviously the last few weeks, like J.J. Abrams been like, hey, July whatever 2025, Superman Legacy's coming out. And this week I'm like, I mean, maybe if this wraps up in like a month, maybe, but I've got a feeling that everything announced for 2024 and 2025 are all shifting back some ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, there's like a steady stream of content, especially movie wise, up until like September, October, and most stuff for the end of the year is probably, you know, in post. They're mostly set in stone at this point. That said, maybe they'll push some of those things just to try and spread their content out.
I think the problem is anything they look at that needs pickups, which can be done fairly late in the process, that's all, you know, questionable.
I suspect they'll just do without it for a few things, which will be interesting to look at and go, normally they would have done some pickups for this, but we can see maybe some of the cracks forming because they didn't.
It's very possible, yeah. But I still think it is only a matter of time. but I don't think it's going to be a month. I think this will.
Oh no, no.
I think those studios are going to hold on for a while. Probably, I would suspect at this point, maybe the end of the year.
I could see it going to the end of the year as well.
Yeah,
I really could. Yeah, and it's the sort of thing where they have to have this fight. Obviously, we're at this tipping point, and it's so funny because Black Mirror literally just did an episode that was this, like the future of this, and it's so funny that it was on Netflix, and almost to a point where you're kind of like, it's a bit toothless because you're like, okay, I get all this commentary about AI and like content creation, Bricker, but you are doing it on Netflix, who are the content
There's a tiny little bit of me that respects Netflix for just allowing it to exist in the state that it does. You know, they didn't demand that. Absolutely no, we can't have this on our server. In the same way that I think I remember talking about something similar on The Boys, taking shots at like Amazon and conglomerates in general like that.
Yeah,
and Amazon just being like, okay.
Yeah, that said though, Netflix I don't think have altered anything they do or changing their course. Like Black Mirror is almost like an outlier on their stream of content right now.
Yeah.
So hey, but it is crazy just how absurdly relevant one of those episodes is that only just came out in the last couple. And obviously there's all sorts of other streaming problems. I think is that Disney Plus or HBO Max did one of those tax write-offs for a movie, but the movie only just came out in the middle of May, and it was like removed for the start of July. It is like
it was only up for like 7 weeks, I think.
I'm like, okay, I guess that's just gone forever.
Yeah.
like the industry's chased streaming, and I think the ramifications of that, like, are like obviously throughout most of this conversation, we're talking about how it's affecting these guilds and the actual people working behind the scenes, and how it's completely obliterating the industry and how the money flows and how it all works. But it's also obliterated viewing habits. It's obliterated the trends that studios are chasing. It's obliterated traditional broadcast, even though now that they've all realized we can't make enough money this way, they're all kind of pivoting back to something that's more like the old model again. It's very fascinating to see the fallout of it all. But let's just hope that, you know, when the dust settles, everything goes into a reasonable place, you would hope.
Sure will. It's kind of funny because like I'm like just too young to have been aware. I was aware of it happening, but not really aware of like the whole thing, you know, like the .com bubble.
Oh yeah.
And just, you know, when that bursts and everything just collapses, and you know, and then, you know, after a few years things have returned to some semblance of normalcy, right? I think, you know, we're at the, you know, the streaming bubble is bursting right now. Like I think, you know, it started with all these tax write-offs. That was, you know, the start of the burst.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first quarter that Netflix did not gain profit and they actually went down, that was the start of the bursting, and I think it popped. I think it's popping right now with these strikes. And
yeah, I think we are in the middle of burst.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be ugly. It's going to be messy for a couple of years figuring out what the industry does to recover. But I think it's only a matter of time. It'll get back to some level of
and kind of
solidity.
Related to this, but the scope creep or the budget creep of Hollywood, which applies to both TV and movies. I just saw today that Secret Invasion had a budget of $220 million for 6 episodes.
This is like the Lord of the Rings show, yeah, Rings of Power, had like $1 billion budget.
And no one's talking about this Nick Fury show. Like, no one cares. I'm seeing no discussion. There's no hype. It's not an event like the first couple of Marvel shows were.
I can tell you 2 things about that entire show. One, the AI intro sequence was a whole big hula at the start. And 2, I hesitate to say spoilers because they just put it on Twitter themselves, so everyone's probably seen it anyway.
I'll warn it anyway, just in case you...
But spoiler 1, if anyone who actually cares, was Rhodey being a Skrull. That's it. It's the only 2 things I know about this show. I know nothing else. I've seen no one say anything.
Yeah. And I think that's scope creep for movies as well, especially. We're seeing it a lot this year where all these mega budget movies are underperforming, and they're definitely underperforming compared to what they used to do, so they're definitely down. But the sort of thing is where if you didn't spend as much money on them, you wouldn't be losing records, you know.
Well, I mean, The Flash is the worst performing movie in Warner's history in terms of its budget to profit ratio.
Yeah, yeah. Which is wild. Although I was kind of rooting against that one because I hated everything about it.
I'm not too sad that one bombed.
So it's just
maybe they shouldn't have spent so much money on it in the first place.
Yes. And if you're thinking to yourself, you're saying pay actors and writers properly, but cut down budgets. That's because that money is not going to these people the way it should be. It's going other places.
I'm saying yes. You can pay your lead actors less. Pay your lead actors a couple of $100,000 less. The ones that are already making millions. Pay them a couple of $100,000 less. Distribute that amongst the rest of your actors, and all of a sudden, everyone's got a nice pay rise. Your lead actors are still getting paid absolutely shitloads.
It's just that writer strike sign that I've seen pop up a lot on Twitter, which is just get rid of one yacht. To the executives, just give up one yacht, and if you all give up one yacht, keep your other 5, but you all give up one yacht, that'll pay for everyone. Like they'll all be fine. But it's the greed. It's the.
I think, like I say, it comes down to it's currently a broken system with the streaming model, with the residuals, with the amount that streaming services make per month versus the amount they have to spend on content. Even when they're not spending $200 million on 6 episodes of a Marvel show, it still costs money to make a show, and the monthly subscription fees are clearly not covering that. Netflix proved that for years because they were always in debt. That's why movies have multiple stages of earnings. They have the box office, they have the home release, they have the TV releases then with advertisers. You have all those revenue opportunities to come in, whereas streaming services are incredibly limited. They got one. You got your monthly fee and that's it, and it does not cover all the things you need to, and they're learning that now. And so yes, they need to give up the yacht, but also they need to restructure how this works long term, because otherwise you just have the same problem again in 10 years time.
Yeah, but I think they both lead to the same core problem, which is greed.
Yeah.
So good luck sorting that out, I guess. So the one other main thing to talk about is that we just happen to have the Emmy nominations this week, so might as well have a look at those. I hope
you like Succession.
I hope you like having Emmys this year, because next year may not have enough shows to actually do an Emmys for, at least not properly.
Very good point. Yeah.
We'll be back to pandemic. Well, that's the other thing actually, is I feel like we all went through a drought because of the pandemic anyway, that I feel like we're all just used to it. It's like, yeah, we could do it again, it's fine. At least this one has a purpose. This isn't just because we have to shut down, this is because we're fighting for something. So we can, we can take the hit. Anyway, so yeah, let's look at the Emmy nominations for this year. So outstanding drama series, the nominations are Andor, Better Call Saul, The Crown, House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Succession, The White Lotus, and Yellow Jackets.
Okay, I've probably watched at least some of half of those, maybe slightly more.
Yeah, if I'm picking a winner, it should be Saul, but they'll probably pick Succession. I'm happy to see Last of Us there.
I do want to watch Succession just because it's from the same creator as Peep Show, which is one of my favorite shows. So I probably would enjoy it.
Yeah, people seem to like it. I have no ill will.
It's probably the last in terms of what came across on my feed. It's the most recent event TV in that I feel like everyone was actually talking about it every single week without fail.
Yeah, even more so than House of the Dragon, which I think was big for its first week, but then it just kind of... People still watch it, obviously, but it's definitely quieting down where it doesn't feel like the event that Game of Thrones was.
Out of all those, I think Succession, then probably Andor is the one I saw the most next, but that may be my personal feed.
Your bubble.
Skewing that a little bit. And then House of the Dragon, I did see a reasonable amount. I've seen no one talk about White Lotus outside of awards.
Notably, 4 out of 8 there were HBO, so they're sitting pretty. They're quite happy with that. Yeah. Comedy series nominations are Abbott Elementary, Barry, which I keep hearing good things about, The Bear, which I've actually watched the first 2 episodes of.
I've heard nothing but amazing things.
It's pretty good. Like we made fun of it because its description had so many personal and professional lives in it. But I will say this: it actually mixes those two things because it's a very shouty kitchen environment where they're yelling and it's very tense, but they're kind of old friends and family whilst they're yelling about what to do in the kitchen. As they're yeah, chef, f you, chef.
Yeah, I'm picturing Gordon Ramsay right now.
It's very stressful. It's one of the most stressful TV shows I've watched. Right, it takes a simple restaurant environment and makes it like we're about to launch nukes at any given moment, like the entire time. So good first 2 episodes. Although I would argue, like, I guess it's a comedy because it's a half-hour show, but like honestly, like I would probably say it's a half-hour drama more than anything else.
I have seen people call it comedy before though, so
like I'm not saying it's never funny, but it's not a sitcom. It's not it's not Always Sunny. Yeah. It's not anything like that. It's very much its own little thing. And I kind of hear the same things about Barry as well, to an extent, that it's a bit more than just a sitcom. But anyway, Jury Duty, which was kind of a surprise hit this year, Marvelous Miss Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso, and Wednesday at Netflix. So
I'm surprised that's under comedies.
I guess a thing where the runtime doesn't matter. They've just decided that that's more of a comedy. Which I guess it kind of is.
I can see the argument, right? Yeah.
But I would say The Bear's more of a drama than Wednesday as a comedy, but like...
Emmy's going to Emmy.
Yeah, Jury Duty is an interesting one. I've not watched it, but the whole setup is that there's one real person and then the rest of it's all actors, like pretending they're on jury duty, but the real guy doesn't know. And one of the actors is James Marsden, who's played himself. Like, he's played himself as if he's at jury duty.
Okay, which is believable. It could happen.
It can happen, yeah.
So I'm getting the impression it's reverse Borat.
In a weird way, yeah. There's the one guy who doesn't realize it's all fake.
Yeah.
And apparently it made for a good season of TV. So, very good. Well, I'm not going to do the competition stuff and like all those other types of shows. There's no point. We don't really talk about those. I will mention best outstanding limited or anthology series. We have Beef at Netflix, Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. That's an awkward title. Daisy Jones and the Six, Fleischman in Trouble, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which just from one episode I'm giving that side eye, but fair enough. I haven't seen any of these, to be fair, though.
Yeah, I've never heard of half of them.
Yeah, fair. Acting in we'll do a comedy first for some reason, so we'll just do that first. So lead actor in a comedy series, you got Bill Hader for Barry, Jason Segel for Shrinking, Martin Short for Only Murders in the Building, Jason Sudeikis for Ted Lasso, and Jeremy Allen White for The Bear. So
nothing there stands out as being a strange pick from what I know.
No, the ones I've seen, they're definitely very good. But and I've heard good things about the other ones.
Yeah, there's nothing there that like from reputation makes me question it.
Actress in a comedy series, we got Christina Applegate for Dead to Me, Rachel Brosnahan for Marvelous Miss Maisel, aka that's Lois Lane now.
Yes.
Quinta Brunson for Abbott Elementary, and Natasha Leon, however you say her name, Poker Face, and Jenny Ortega for Wednesday. So, and they all have specific episodes they've technically submitted, I think, for some of these. But
yeah, but that's always the case. But I do wonder how much they actually kind of take that into consideration. How much they just that's the episode that they have to watch because that's the one that's But they kind of take in the whole performance across the board if they happen to have seen the show, right?
And to be fair, I think the performance should be for the whole season because that makes more sense to me. But technically, the rules dictate it's just for that one episode that you're comparing. Yeah. So it's a weird thing. Lead actor in a drama series, we got Jeff Bridges for The Old Man, Brian Cox for Succession, Kieran Culkin for Succession, Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul, Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us, and Jeremy Strong for Succession. Some interesting picks there. Obviously, Odenkirk's something that I would root for just because I think it's phenomenal. I do think Pascal is an interesting pick for a nom because I do think his performance in Last of Us was very good. And was very nuanced.
Good. I definitely wouldn't put him above Odenkirk in
I would agree with that.
At all, but
That's nice for a nom, though. I don't think he should win, but I do think it's a nice nom. 3 Succession actors there, and lead actor. Like, how many leads do you have on the show?
I guess when it's an ensemble, though, they kind of all can be leads, right?
But sometimes they treat that like they're all supporting, though, depending on what they want to submit for. It's kind of up to the show in a lot of ways.
That says to me that they see prestige in it, and they think that they are all leading men.
Yeah. Outstanding lead actress in our drama series, we've got Sharon Horgan for Bad Sisters. I've literally never heard of that. Melanie Linsky for Yellow Jackets. Elizabeth Moss for The Handmaid's Tale. She must have been nominated for every season of that by this point.
Probably.
Bella Ramsey for The Last of Us. Kerry Russell for The Diplomat. And Sarah Snook for Succession.
Barring the first one, who never even heard of the show, rest of them seem like solid picks.
Yeah, they all make sense to me. I stopped watching Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, but she'd never turned in a bad performance.
Oh no, of course not. I just can't comment on this season specifically.
Yeah.
Linsky is good on Yellow Jackets, although I would not put her above Bella Ramsey for Last of Us out of the ones I've seen here, because I think she took that role, and despite me having like a preconception of what that role's supposed to be because of the games, she made it her own in a way that I thought was. I thought Pascal was great. I thought she was maybe even the standout of the two of them, but it'll probably be Succession. Snook's probably taking it.
Probably, let's be honest.
But I won't do the actors in the limited series. I feel like it's just ballooning things. But supporting performances in comedy for actor first, we get Anthony Carrigan for Barry, Phil Dunster for Ted Lasso. That's Jamie Tart, just because I didn't recognize the actor's name. Brett Goldstein for Ted Lasso. That's Roy Kent. James Marsden for Jury Duty as himself. I didn't know he was nominated for that, so it's funny that I explained that earlier. Eben Moss Backrack for The Bear. That was a fun name to say, I'll say that much. Tyler James Williams for Abbott Elementary, and Henry Winkler for Barry. I did not know the Fonz was in Barry.
Well, now you do.
Good for him. Yeah, 2 Ted Lasso actors on here. I do think Jamie has become a far more entertaining, compelling character over the course of the show. It's hard to fight against Roy, though. He's just so entertaining.
He is just so Roy Kent.
It's and of course there's a lot of talk now about the show basically continuing under a slightly different name without Ted. And honestly, it's characters like Roy that are like, yeah,
it's doable.
Just keep doing it. Just keep going.
Yeah. But maybe once you have some writers.
Obviously. In fact, he himself is one of the writers.
Yeah, he was hired originally as a writer.
And now he's on strike on 2 fronts.
Yeah, I think the story is he was hired as a writer, was writing the character, and then was like, hey, I think I can do this. And then still put forward an audition. Like, hey, let me show you.
Interesting. So no, that's fun stuff, and not to spoil anything, but they also set up something that could be a big focus of a potential continuation of Ted Lasso without Ted. So could be. I don't know if you've watched season 2 yet.
I've got like 3 episodes to go.
Yeah, I watched it all in the last week or so it's all fresh in my head.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some threads that they could take. Going forward into whatever they can.
I can probably guess what at least some of those would be.
Some of them, there's one that you definitely can't know because they just literally bring it up like out of nowhere in the last episode. But it's like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds like an interesting thing to add. But yeah, so yeah, cool. Actress and supporting actress, in a comedy series, you got Alex Borstein for Marvelous Miss Maisel, Ayo Edebri for The Bear. Janelle Jones for Abbott. Sorry, not Janelle Jones. Janelle James. I misread that. Abbott Elementary. Cheryl Lee Ralph for Abbott Elementary. Abbott Elementary's got a lot of actors that get nominated, I guess. Juno Temple for Ted Lasso. Hannah Waddingham for Ted Lasso. And Jessica Williams for Shrinking. So again, Ted Lasso with a couple of noms.
Pretty much the 2 that you would expect, right?
Yeah.
If there was going to be 2, it would be those.
It's a weird thing to, like, I think they're both great in the show. I think Juno Temple, obviously her performance is still perfectly great, in season 3. I do think her plot is like one of the weirder elements of season 3 that feels like it kind of like it was good at points, but it kind of like makes some weird pivots a couple of times.
Yeah,
and it's not really her fault as an actor, obviously, but I do think it kind of like diminishes like the idea of giving her an award for the performance in a weird way.
I don't think I agree with the assessment of the role and the writing.
Yeah,
I don't agree that should affect her because the performance is still great. She's performing exactly what she's supposed to.
Oh no, of course. But I guess what I'm saying is when you have like the good acting and a character story and arc that makes sense, like when you mirror those things together, I think inherently that has an advantage.
It probably does, just because of
I feel
your
like
own bias, right?
if the character writing isn't that good, I feel like the acting performance has to be so above and beyond to overcome the fact that all the other nominees, potentially, I don't know most of these other characters from these other shows, but potentially you'd have to really go above and beyond to really, like, overshadow them. But all right, outstanding supporting actor in a drama series. We've got F. Murray Abraham for The White Lotus. We got Nicholas Braun for Succession. Michael Imperoli for The White Lotus. We've got Theo James for The White Lotus. We got Matthew McFadden for Succession. Alan Ruck for Succession. I didn't know he was in that. Very good. Played a character named Connor. Poor him. Will Sharp for White Lotus. And Alexander Skarsgård for Succession. So Succession and White Lotus. In fact, was there anything that wasn't one of those two shows? I'm just double checking. No. Every single nomination in that category is one of those two shows.
Or one of those two shows is winning something.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say at this point. Outstanding supporting actress in a drama series. We got Jennifer Coolidge for The White Lotus, Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown, Megan Fahey for White Lotus, Sabrina Impacciatore, probably. Impacciatore, yeah, it sounds kind of Italian. I'll go with that. Also White Lotus. Aubrey Plaza, White Lotus. Rhea Seehor for Better Call Saul. Yeah, these White Lotus actors can get fucked because Seahor's taking it, or she should at least.
She better.
Her performance was phenomenal this season of Better Call Saul. I refuse to accept. And then just to round off the list, J. Smith Cameron for Succession and Simona Tabasco for The White Lotus. So that was 5 more White Lotus noms in this category and only one Succession. But
it baffles me. Like, I see no one ever talking about that show. I saw nothing outside. Every time it comes up with awards is the only time I ever hear about it.
I've heard a little bit about it, but it's just from people who have given it a try because it's so critically acclaimed, and that's kind of it.
The thing is, like, I don't even hear it being critically acclaimed in terms of like consistent reviews when it's coming out or anything like that. I only hear just award season, and that's it.
Yeah. I don't know. Wild. So directing for a comedy series, we got Barry, which is Bill Hader directing. And these are for specific episodes. One episode's called Wow. The Bear, episode review. Marvelous Miss Maisel for 4 minutes. The Miss Pat Show for Don't Touch My Hair. Ted Lasso, So Long Farewell, which is Declan Lowney, which... Was that the finale? I'm trying to remember if that was the finale's name. It sounds like a finale, but I don't know if it actually was. It
sounds like a finale, yeah.
Part of me's like doubting it and thinking it's actually the second last or third last episode for whatever reason.
No, it's the last one.
Is it the last one? Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah, that episode by the way is like 75 minutes. Like the last couple episodes are really long.
Oof.
Anyway, Wednesday for Wednesday's Child is Full of Woe. And then outstanding directing for a drama series, we've got Andor, Rick Schroed. We've got Bad Sisters, The Prick. We've got The Last of Us, Long Long Time. Not surprising, that's the episode that got that nom. That's the Bill episode.
Oh, okay.
We have Succession, America Decides. We have Succession, Connor's Wedding. Oh, there was a character named Connor. Alan Ruck played Connor.
Yeah.
There you go. Then Succession, Living Plus. There's 3 directing noms for Succession. Are you kidding me?
Are they all the same director?
No, they're different director. I don't know if they're allowed to do the same director. I think.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, no, they're all different names. And then White Lotus, Arrivederci. or sorry, they say it in my favorite way, like Italian speaker Brad Pitt. Arrivederci. So you've seen Inglourious Bastards, right?
Unfortunately, I have.
What do you mean, unfortunately? You're such a prick. Okay, there we go. Oh, here's an interesting one. Outstanding directing for a limited anthology series or movie. I'm only kind of mentioning this because Dan Trachtenberg's nominated for Prey, because I guess technically, because it was on Hulu as a movie. Yeah, it counts as a TV thing, which is kind of a shame because I wish I saw that in theaters, but whatever.
Yeah, at least it exists.
No, I'm glad it exists. I do want them to put it on iTunes for purchase, and it's not like they've not put other things.
Still not.
No, it's still not there.
Huh.
And it's not like they've not put other things up for purchase. It's not like it's out of their, MO. So
they want the possibility to delete it for tax benefits.
Oh, they can piss off. If you want me championing piracy, then
that is how you do it.
You
Yeah.
dare delete Prey, and then all right, fine. Well, I guess
Honestly, if anyone wants to watch any of the things that they have deleted, so you cannot watch, screw them, go pirate.
Oh yeah,
why shouldn't you?
Yeah, F them. Like
they've given you no way to buy it or to sign up to a service to watch it. Screw it, just go download it.
So anyway, the last chunk here is writing, which is writing for a comedy. We've got Barry, same episode that was directed. The Bear for The System, Jury Duty for Ineffective Assistance, Only Murderers in the Building for I Know Who Did It. The other two for Carrie and Brooke Go to AIDS Play. That's a title. Ted Lasso for So Long Farewell. And then for drama series for writing, we've got Andor, One Way Out. Was that a good one?
Which one was this, sorry?
One Way Out. You don't know what?
I don't remember the names. Oh, yeah. That was the end of the prison arc with Andy Serkis, and it was phenomenal. That was the peak of the show.
We got Bad Sisters, The Prick, Better Call Saul, Point and Shoot, Better Call Saul, Saul Gone. So 2 Saul episodes got a rating nom. Quite right, frankly. And then we got Last of Us, Long Long Time, also unsurprising. Succession, Connor's Wedding, and White Lotus, Arrivederci, which I assume is the last episode of that second season.
Probably,
since it's goodbye. Yeah. Prey also got a nomination for writing in limited anthology or movie category.
Yeah.
So that's something. And the only other thing left to mention is just like what shows and networks did the best in terms of number of noms.
It's got to be HBO, right? I
mean, Succession, it's an order of a show first, so I'll do that. Succession got 14 noms, White Lotus got 12, Beef got 9 from Netflix, but that's one of the things that we saw less of because it's a limited series, so there's less categories that we were looking at. Ted Lasso got 8, and then Barry, The Bear, and The Dahmer Show all got 6. And then Abbott Elementary, Better Call Saul, Fleischman in Trouble, and The Last of Us all got 5, and then it's less from that point on. If I look at network,
between Succession and
here we go,
and Barry. I think White Lotus was HBO, right?
What was that first one? Oh, okay. Oh, I forget to do this. All right, so ignore those numbers. That was shows with major nominations. So there's a second list with total nominations. I thought those numbers sounded low. Succession had 27. Last of Us had 24. White Lotus had 23. So that top 3 are all HBO. And then Ted Lasso had 21. Marvelous Miss Maisel had 14. The Bear, Beef, and the Dahmer Show all had 13. Wednesday had 12. Barry and Only Murders in the Building had 11. Yeah, so a lot of stuff. And then for the networks, HBO, unsurprisingly, given that it had the top 3 shows with nominations, had a whopping 40 nominations to its name. Number 2 was Netflix with 25. And then number 3 was Apple TV Plus with 17. You know what? I actually think Apple TV Plus have made some good shows, and in some ways are more interesting.
Ted Lasso and what was the other one that got a few?
Oh, I don't remember now.
It was the one that had Harrison Ford in. Shrinking?
Shrinking, yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Yeah, that was it.
But they deserve some more recognition. I think they're making better content than Netflix typically these days. Not that not made any stinkers, they have, but they've made some good stuff in their few years. Hulu's number 4 with 14, and at least 2 of those were Prey. So
Prey and Handmaid's Tale would have been a few of them, yeah.
FX got 12. They can thank the bear for a lot of that, I guess. Prime Video has 9. Thank you to Miss Maisel. And then after that, it's 6, 5, 4. At the bottom of the pack, technically they've got HBO Max listed separately with 2. So,
All right, sure. 42 for HBO.
Tied with that though, for 2, is Peacock. And the Roku channel. Peacock's on par with the Roku channel.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Which are below Freevee. Because Freevee had 3.
That's very embarrassing.
And they're tied with CBS, who also had 3.
But I expect CBS to have none.
Yeah. Just above them, Disney Plus, NBC, and Showtime all had 4, so they're kind of...
Disney Pluses were probably all Andor then?
Probably.
And the one Kenobi one?
What's surprising almost is the AMC have only got 5, so they're right in the middle of the whole list. And I imagine almost all of them, if not all, were Better Call Saul. You had Seahorn, Odenkirk,
2 acting,
drama, and then writing and directing. Yeah, they were all...
Yeah, all Saul.
All Saul. Yeah, I might want to start developing interesting shows, AMC, because your critical darling's done. It's over.
Yeah.
And we're getting a new sci-fi show with Gilligan and Seahorn. Probably a bit later than we would have done now, but it should still get it.
We should. Speaking of unrelated, I just happened to remember. Did you see the Metropolis show got cancelled? The Esmail one.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, they.
Why'd that fall through?
I don't know. I remember reading this a few weeks ago.
That's shit. Huh? I was looking forward to that.
Yeah. Just says, not going forward amid writer strike and mounting pre-production costs.
So this is a victim of the writer's strike. That's actually makes me feel a little bit better. Just I'm a little worried that because his Battlestar Galactica thing also fell through, that he's going to have trouble getting I didn't want him to be one of these TV showrunners who has one great show and for some reason they just never give him a proper chance to really develop a great second show. I really hope that he gets something off the ground. Obviously,
the reality is there's going to be a lot of shows that get cut entirely because of these strikes. A lot of them, especially expensive ones, just won't come back after.
That's true. I am hoping that they realise the potential darling they have in their hands with Gilligan and Seahorn. And I don't...
Hopefully that was early enough in production that it hadn't actually been started. There was no date set, so it didn't have an impact. Whereas the problem is things that already were... They had dates, they had slots, everything was worked out, but it didn't get done in time, and now it obviously can't get done, and it just delays everything and everything. It's easier just to cancel it and work on something else.
I think Metropolis as well, probably, they had to probably build tons of sets for that because it's all set in this futuristic city. Whereas
it was meant to be expensive.
Yeah, so that's a shame.
And it's the expensive stuff that gets cut first when this happens. I suspect Sandman season 2 on Netflix was in the middle of shooting because they continued shooting throughout the writer's strike. Like they were like, we got enough, we're good.
They've shut down now though, yeah.
They've shut down now, and I don't know if that comes back after. Depends how much I've got left of it, but I'll be surprised.
Well, there's a sunk cost fallacy. If they've done 2/3 of the shooting, they might want to at least finish that season just so they can get something out of it.
They might, but now can they write it off as a tax thing?
Oh, true. Yeah, this tax write-off thing. Honestly, it's one of the worst things that the studios have started doing. They've realised that they can make a bit of money back by just sweeping it under the rug. And well, for a lot of the content, I might not care about the content specifically, but every once in a while they'll hit something that I do actually care about, and it's like, this is why it shouldn't happen at all.
Yeah, it's one of those slippery slope things. Like, it doesn't matter if they're sweeping under things you don't care about. Don't let it become a thing. I mean, it's pretty too late. It is a thing, but don't support it, even when it's something you don't care about. Don't just shrug and go, oh, well. It's awful. It's been awful the whole time they've been doing it.
I mean, I will say, at least HBO Max a lot of the shows they've pulled, at the very least, they're still licensing those out to other people. I feel like everything that Disney Plus have pulled and Netflix have pulled, they've just disappeared. Like, they're just gone. At least HBO Max are licensing out their shows that they've taken off their service. So at least there's still technically a legit way of getting to that content.
I don't think they are with everything, are they, HBO Max?
I mean, we're not going to count the Batgirl movie, obviously, but certainly the bigger... I think some of the kids' animated stuff isn't, but like...
I know, but that's the stuff that they never released in the first place, right? The stuff that, like Raised by Wolves.
I don't know what they're doing with that, but...
Exactly, I don't think they've done anything with that. I think they just pulled it, didn't they?
Well, but some of them... Like, I know Westworld and... maybe a better example is The Nevers, which never even aired its second half on its own network. They just shipped it out to some free service instead. What do you mean?
They aired the rest of that? I didn't even realize it came out.
Well, they didn't air it. They had the second half of season 1, and instead of them putting it out themselves, either on HBO or Max, they sold it off to like a free service as a streaming show. So
yeah, I just didn't realize it came out anywhere.
No, it exists. I've not seen the second half of the season because, I mean, it's kind of a weird release to like get excited about and be like, oh, they've dumped this somewhere with no intention of continuing it. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know. I just, I mean, I guess I'm glad it's somewhere. Not that I cared about it, but I'm glad it is somewhere.
Given the showrunner change, it would maybe be a curious thing to see what that second half of the season is like, but I'm kind of worried that I'll really like it.
And then be annoyed that there's no more.
So I kind of don't want to in a weird way. So I don't know. It's a messy situation. All this tangled nonsense.
Yeah.
Anywho, there's well, we got to an hour just on strike and Emmy noms. That's something.
Hey, strike's a big topic.
Yeah, but yeah, like when I went looking for news from the last 2 weeks, I found there was like one show cancellation of something we never heard of. Like, I mean, I'm making an assumption on your part, but I'm pretty sure.
How dare you? That was my favorite show.
I doubt it. It wasn't an anime. I don't think so.
My favorite show is not an anime, probably.
But you always go on about them like a tit, don't you?
I literally hadn't mentioned them a single time.
I know, this week. You've done it in the past. Anywho, we have been back doing Star Trek episodes after a bit of a break. Apologies for that, but we have already put 2 out publicly since we came back. The next one's already up on Patreon, so the ball is effectively rolling again on classic Trek, and especially since there's not going to be a lot of new shows to cover for the foreseeable future. I mean, me and Tara are still doing Strange New Worlds, of course, which can sometimes be out at the weekend, although typically it's been Monday by the time those reviews have been coming out because we don't get to it till the Saturday. But yeah, so Strange New Worlds on. I've been doing Person of Interest on a weekly basis. I enjoy that show.
Did you check out the My Adventures with Superman yet?
No, I have not. No.
I watched the first 2 when they came out last week. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, this is the new animated series.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll actually be starting another solo classic show. Basically just because there's no bloody new shows to cover. And you know, I put out just like sort of some feelers a couple of weeks ago in the community tab on YouTube and just said, hey, like, I'm not doing a vote or anything, but if people want to suggest some classic shows, here's some that I had in mind, but you can suggest.
Have you decided yet?
I have decided. So I narrowed it down to 3 for very different reasons, and there were some that were tempting, but I left them because I'm like, no, that's something that we'll do as a pair, right? Because I think at some point we will enjoy going back and shit watching the rest of Smallville and shit watching the rest of Gotham. I actually think those are, you know,
there's value. You don't want to do that on your own. On your own, that's just sad.
I think one of them at some point, maybe not in the too distant future, if we get ahead enough on Trek, we might even dip into one of them as a nice, fun, casual thing to do. And people seem to enjoy shitting on them, so but that's something that could be in the horizon in the relatively near future. But I put, so the 3 that I narrowed it down to were Stargate SG-1, because it's just always been on my radar and it has a following, people seem to like it. The X-Files, because it's just a big part of pop culture, so despite the fact that I know it doesn't end very well, there's just such a big missing spot in my TV history that I know has got a lot of good episodes that will be enjoyable to watch, and people do want that covered. And then the third one, which was leaning into the shit watching a little bit, because I guess I was in like a 90s mood because it was all 90s shows. I was thinking maybe Charmed, because it's trashy, and I thought, oh, maybe that'll be fun to like poke fun at. That was by far out of those three the one that had the least interest. Like no one was arguing
that's
for Charmed.
fun for like season overviews on your own, like, you know, sort of thing. Like, you shit watch an entire season and just, you know, give your thoughts on it. But episode by episode of Charmed,
I think there could be fun in that, but obviously it's not happening. I didn't pick Charmed. It was between Stargate and X-Files ultimately, and the decision, which I've not revealed yet, so I guess I'm doing it now, is X-Files. I will be starting X-Files. It would have been this week, but I was actually a little bit sick in the day that I was going to record it, and I had trouble speaking without feeling miserable, so it'll be starting next week. So look forward to that, everyone. So on a weekly basis, you'll be getting a classic Trek, Strange New Worlds, Person of Interest, and X-Files from me, and maybe the odd smattering of something else, like the odd news episode if something happens, for example. But if we get ahead enough in Trek, we might talk about, I mean, we could go back to Outlander, I suppose. We did 8 episodes of that, and it was not a bad show. There was interesting things to talk about. Although part of me's itching to shit on something. Maybe it's just because it's been so long since I've shat on a TV show.
it's been a while, yeah.
But you know, we'll
Did we finish the first season of Gotham?
you know, I don't know if we did finish the first season. I think we'd have to go back to it. I think we did maybe like 10 or 11 or something like that. I think what I would do actually is, if we start recording reviews for one of those, is, well, I wouldn't start putting them out right away. I would go back and start like editing out, because they were part of like a longer thing. I'd go back and edit those out and republish them as individual videos, so that when it catches up to where we have started recording again, you know, they're all there on a playlist. People can be...
It'd be a jump of us being 3 years older.
And possibly wiser. I don't know.
Maybe drunker.
Well, you may be drunker.
I don't know about that. I was pretty drunk for those.
Hey, it's up to you if you want to drink with your...
You think I'm getting through Gotham or Smallville sober?
Oh dear. Anyway, so there you go. That's your kind of random TV news drop. There's not a lot of news to talk about, which is why, for the most part, there's not been one. There could have been like one extra one after the last one we did, and it just kind of fell through because we were busy. But the last few weeks have been a bit of a wasteland, barring the build up to the strike. So hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. We'll have another one when it feels like there should be one, because there's things to talk about. In fact, maybe that's even a better reason to shit on an old show, is because if there's no news, we can do it instead of the news.
That's true.
And that's where we can bollocks. But yeah, support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonus content and whatnot. But you can do that over there, help keep all the content coming. Check out all the TV reviews, and of course check out Mail Fuzz Movies, where I do movie podcasts. 3 different shows: one with Tim, which is a horror movie podcast; one with Tara, which is a sci-fi movie podcast; and one with David, which goes through franchises and, or in the case of right now, Christopher Nolan movies. So sometimes it'll be a director or an actor that will be sort of working through the filmography.
Can't possibly guess why that's what you're working to right now.
It's almost as if there's a new Christopher Nolan movie coming out that we wanted to tie into.
Yeah.
So yeah, our review of Following would have went out today. Yeah, on the movie channel. Yeah, today. There's some on Patreon just now, but by the time this goes out, it'll be public, I think.
You just have no idea what you're doing, do you?
I do. It's complex because I've got like different timelines. I've got public timelines. I've got Patreon timelines.
It's there or it's not. It's that simple.
And all while I'm babysitting you, so there's a lot to take care of.
Yeah, but at least I'm sober this week.
That's a rare occasion, though. So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?